Let's go to the Prime Minister, who's there with the Deputy PM,
Thanks for joining
Minister.
us.
They're all there this morning. Chris Bowen too. Here's the Prime
Can
Minister.
I just begin by giving a shout out to the communities, particularly in the Northern Territory, but as well in Queensland. A large monsoon trough remains over the top end of the Northern Territory and it's impacting communities across the Big Rivers region. Heavy rain as well is there in southeast Queensland as the tropical low continues to track south. Southeast Queensland is expected to experience large rainfall totals today. So people in the path of these weather systems should prioritise their safety by following flood advice and warnings, staying aware of surroundings and avoiding hazards like floodwaters. If it's flooded, forget it. We can't say it too many times. And so if people follow that advice, we'll continue to provide support as we always do with the state and territory governments. The Iranian conflict in the Middle East began just over a week ago, and Iran's reprisal attacks continue to escalate, already at a scale and depth we haven't seen before. 12 countries across the region, from Cyprus through to the Gulf, are continuing to be targeted. The United Arab Emirates alone has been forced to shoot down over 1,500 rockets and drones. This growing wave of dangerous and destabilising attacks from Iran puts civilian lives at risk, of course including Australian lives, of which there are more than 20,000 people based in the UAE. In responding to requests following a conversation that I had with the President, Mohammed bin Zayed, and other requests, Australia will deploy an E-7A Wedgetail to the Gulf to help protect and defend Australians and other civilians. The Wedgetail will provide long-range reconnaissance capability, which will help to protect and secure the airspace above the Gulf. The Wedgetail and supporting Australian Defence Force personnel will be deployed for an initial 4 weeks in support of the collective self-defence of Gulf nations. Additionally, in response to a request, my government intends to provide advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles to the United Arab Emirates. The first priority of my government is, and always will be, to keep Australians safe. There are around 115,000 Australians in the Middle East, around 24,000 of those in the UAE. Helping Australians means also helping the UAE and other Gulf nations to defend themselves against what are unprovoked attacks. My government has been clear that we're not taking offensive action against Iran, and we've been clear that we are not deploying Australian troops on the ground in Iran. We continue to work on contingencies to keep Australians safe and to help travellers leave the Middle East. We've already sent DFAT personnel to the region as part of crisis response teams. They're on the ground providing consular support. More than 2,600 Australians have now returned home, but significant challenges remain and further work is underway to support those still seeking to leave. We again say to people, if you're trying to come back to Australia and you're offered a seat, please take it. Take the opportunity. Australia has supported action aimed at preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and preventing Iran from continuing to threaten international peace and security. Our position remains that we do not want to see the conflict continue to escalate, and we call on all parties to uphold international humanitarian law and to protect civilian life. We're taking defensive action to support our partners' efforts to keep Australians safe. Deployed ADF assets will operate according to the right of collective self-defence. Further, late last night, we issued 5 humanitarian visas to members of the Iranian women's soccer team. We've been preparing for this for some time. And indeed, the Minister for Home Affairs, Tony Burke, travelled to Queensland on Sunday, returned, and then travelled again last night. Australians have been moved by the plight of these brave women. They're safe here and they should feel at home here. The AFP have had plans in place with Commissioner Chrissy Barrett directly involved. And once it was made clear that these women wanted assistance, the Australian Federal Police moved them to a safe location where they remain. The Minister for Home Affairs has spoken directly with the ASIO Director-General about this, and we dealt with this as well through our appropriate security forums. We're willing to provide assistance to other women in the team, noting that this is a very delicate situation and it is up to them. But we say to them, if you want our help, help is here, and we will provide that. I do want to take the opportunity before I hand to the Deputy Prime Minister. I do want to thank the media for their restraint in reporting. This has been a very sensitive story. Obviously, we wanted to make it clear to the athletes that support was available to them. They then had to consider that and do it in a way that did not present any danger to them or to their families or friends back home in Iran. And we have received those 5 people have been granted the visas through the direct ministerial intervention. We remain available as a nation to help others.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. As the Prime Minister has said, at the request of the UAE, we will be deploying an E7 Wedgetail to the Gulf. This is one of the leading capabilities in the world in terms of airborne long-range reconnaissance and command, and we are one of the leading nations in the use of the E7. What this aircraft will be doing is very similar to the role that it has played in recent times from Poland in respect of the defence of Ukraine. There will be in the order of 85 personnel who will go with this airframe, and that's the normal crew. The airframe will be leaving Australia today, and the expectation is that it will be in the region in the middle of the week and operational by the end of the week. We have also received a request from the UAE to supply advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, AMRAAMs, and we will be supplying a number of those to the UAE as well. These are defensive weapons, and I want to make that clear. And that is in terms of the requests that we are meeting today and the announcements that we are making today. All of this is in the defence of the Gulf countries. I want to be really clear about that. That is the basis upon which our personnel are being deployed and this equipment is being deployed. It is for the defence of the countries of the Gulf, in particular UAE, where there are significant numbers of Australians who reside. We're really pleased to be able to make this contribution, and certainly in speaking with my counterpart in the UAE, they are also enormously grateful for the contribution that we're making.
Foreign Minister.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Well, as the Prime Minister said, our priority is and will always be to keep Australians safe at home and abroad. And we know this has been such a difficult time for many Australians in the Middle East. What we have seen is unprecedented. Iran has attacked 12 countries, and overnight we have seen that these attacks are escalating. In recent days, Dubai Airport has been under fire from Iranian missiles and drones. And since the 28th of February, more than 27,000 flights to and from the Middle East have been cancelled, with an estimated 4.4 million airline seats removed from schedules. We have been working around the clock to support Australians who have been impacted by these cancellations. As of this morning, more than 2,600 Australians have returned on commercial flights. Further services are scheduled in the coming days. Yesterday, we saw the first flight from Qatar direct to Australia land safely, and we hope to see further flights in coming days. I spoke to the Qatari Prime Minister last night, thanked him for their support for Australians, and confirmed with him that they intend, subject to safety, to operate a limited schedule in coming days. Limited outbound commercial flights have also begun to operate from Ben Gurion International Airport in Israel. Commercial flights continue to operate in Lebanon. As I have said, commercial flights remain the fastest way to help Australians leave the Middle East at scale. I have also been advised by airports and by airlines that the overwhelming majority of Australians who were transiting the region and were stranded have now left the Middle East. There are many more Australians still in the Middle East, and we do understand these are difficult decisions for Australians and their families. But can I echo what the Prime Minister has now said? We encourage those who do wish to leave, do so now. Do so while commercial flights are still available, however limited. I emphasise that DFAT has directed the departure of all dependents of officials posted to the United Arab Emirates. This is because the security situation is deteriorating and it is likely to get worse before it gets better. We've also been focused on trying to offer options to Australians where no flights were available. The Kuwait airport is closed, so we have arranged bus transportation to Riyadh. 2 of those buses have arrived this morning, enabling Australians to continue their journey from Riyadh on commercial flights. Similarly, for Bahrain, DFAT officials are working with partners on arranging similar land transport also to Riyadh. The majority of Australians assisted by embassy officials to depart Qatar over the weekend have now left Riyadh on commercial flights. Again, I emphasise for Australians in Iran, consular assistance is extremely limited. Australians in Iran should prioritise their safety and shelter in place during strikes. We urge them to consider all available options to depart if it is safe to do so. The 24-hour crisis centre remains activated. The crisis registration portal is open for Australians in Bahrain, Iran, Israel, Kuwait, Qatar, Lebanon and the United Arab Emirates. We continue to advise do not travel to most destinations in the Middle East, and Australians requiring urgent consular assistance can contact the 24-hour Consular Emergency Centre 1300 555 135 within Australia or 612 6261 3305 from overseas. Thank you.
Minister Barr.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Just an update on Australia's petrol and diesel situation, which I know is of great interest to every Australian, and Australians are right to be wanting the latest information. I can say that our diesel and petrol supplies remain at this point secure. We have as much diesel in Australia today as we had before this crisis began, and the stock obligation, which the companies are legally required to meet, remains at 32 days. We are seeing a big increase in demand, particularly for diesel. And I understand why Australians are concerned. But my key message is that every single expected arrival of diesel supply in recent days and expected in coming days and weeks has arrived on schedule as expected. So there is no need for panic buying. Now, I do have a great deal of concern and empathy for those farmers in particular who, because of the situation with the supply chain in regional Australia, are having difficulty getting diesel. But I do need to emphasise this is managing a huge spike in demand, not an impact on supply at this point. Later today, Minister Julie Collins and I, together with Minister Tim Ayres, will convene a roundtable of the National Farmers Federation, the oil companies, the peat groups, Trucking Australia, to ensure that the flow of communication between those groups is as strong as it could be. We've been talking to them separately over the weekend. I've been in constant contact, particularly with the refiners, to make sure that everything that can be done is being done. But there'll be no doubt a constructive and sensible conversation convened by ministers later today to ensure that all those necessary communication flows and actions are taken. But the key message is, while there are challenges and uncertainties in all international supply chains at the moment, the preparations that the government has put in place for the minimum stock obligation are working. If it's necessary to access those minimum supplies, we will, but we're not there at this point. And the important thing to know is that there is no need to be concerned at this point about the supply of diesel or petrol in Australia, because our stocks are as high as they were before this crisis began. But we do need to work to ensure that as much as possible is finding farmers, because what the refiners are dealing with is a massive increase in demand, and they are meeting their contractual obligations to those who have ordered diesel in advance, but they are having trouble meeting extra orders that are coming on the spot market because they are so high. But we'll continue to work with them to ensure that as much as possible is being done.